This is Money Made Simple, the financial podcast that keeps it simple and gets to the point.
Welcome back to Money Made Simple with Jenny and Liv. Today it's just Liv, and we are trying something a little bit different, bringing in Simplicity members, so starting to think about investor stories. So today with me I have Te Wai Coulston. Welcome, Te Wai.
Kia ora, Liv.
Lovely to have you on. So Te Wai has been a long-standing member of Simplicity. So we just wanted to find out a little bit more about what makes Simplicity members tick, why they invest with us, how they invest. Today is all about Te Wai. Can you tell us a bit about yourself, your hopes, your dreams, your past, all of that?
Yeah, sure thing. Ko Te Wai Coulston tōku ingoa, ko kaitahu, ko Ngāti Kahununu, ko te aitanga hauati o Kuiwi, no tairāwhitia hau, kei te noho o ki Tamaki Makaurau. So born and raised in Gisborne, residing up here in Auckland, whakapapa all across the board. I work at a strategy boutique in the CBD, which makes me a generalist at heart. When I was growing up, there was varying states of where we were at as a whānau financially. And that made me think about finances from a really early age. It made me think about what good investment looks like, whether investment is necessary, what mortgages mean, what budgets do, all of these things. And my ability to learn pretty quick meant that I latched on to this investing idea around the start of university, really.
Okay. Money is a hard thing to talk about. And it sounds like money was an interesting thing for you growing up in your family. For you, in terms of investing and earning money, what's your why behind that?
It's broad in some senses, but it's also really narrow in others, and I'll get into that. Like I said, growing up, there were times where we felt relatively rich, I suppose. Like, yeah, we can buy the fancy shoes, but there were other times where that really wasn't the case. And it was kind of ingrained in me to always seek out the deal, the sale, not to want after nice things, but just focus on the necessities, and I'm always trying to find a deal. I was rampant on Trade Me $1 reserves once upon a time. When we talk about the why of investing for me, I want to secure that long-term, stable economic security for myself and my whānau, not just in the immediate term, not just in this lifetime, but ideally across multiple lifetimes. The value of compounding interest. So $1 invested today in 30 years could be worth $2 or $2.50 if you keep investing across your life. It just is a huge curve. That principle of starting early, putting money away for the future, and then having a set and forget mentality so that you have enough to manage what you need at the time, but then really open up options for yourself in the future. That is core to how I invest and why I invest. But then if we're going broader than that, I think that capital has a really important role to play in how we vote for the world we want to live in. So you say, put your money where your mouth is, right? If you're investing in green technologies or climate offsetting mechanisms over guns, I suppose, or oil, that is a vote towards the world that you want. And in that way, money quickly becomes tied to our values. And I like the idea of, in the future, having enough capital at my disposal to be able to support those things which help move the world and the communities that I'm a part of forward, whether that be planting more native forests, or it could be being able to support people from where I grew up through university, which was, a niggly thing for me. I think the purpose of investing, of having capital at an organization or individual's disposal, is not just for consumption, but the good that can be done with those funds.
I think that's awesome, because that's something that Simplicity is all about, right? Like, that's our why, in terms of, you touched on using money to create the world that you want, and at the core of our business is creating, more wealth for our consumers to have more choices, and that choice can be you decide to go towards a better future, which is exactly what we're trying to do as well on the side with planting the tree planting by the Simplicity Foundation and charities and all that. So I think it's super. This is a great first investor story, right? Because it's super aligned with what Simplicity is actually trying to do. You've drunk in the Kool-Aid like us, in a way. Let's talk about Simplicity and your journey with us. How did you discover Simplicity? So were you new to KiwiSaver at the time?
I had a KiwiSaver with the same bank that my parents had a mortgage
Right.
with. And I think that's where their KiwiSavers and the whole family's KiwiSavers were until I started converting them all, sharing the story of Simplicity. So that's where it was, and that's where it sat for a long time. It was the very start of my third year at university. I had learnt a fair bit about business and finance, and had started to get an exposure to the world, I suppose. And Simplicity came up, I think it was through a social media ad,
Right.
or a social media video where Sam Stubbs was just talking about the state of KiwiSavers in New Zealand. What really got me was the fees that were being put on to everybody's gains. For example, if your fund is making 2% a year, but then the management fee is 1%, you're halving the
returns.
of all of those members. And I was able to see that happening across the New Zealand market. It turned me off from funds management originally, but then Sam coming through and saying, hey, it doesn't need to be this way, just through not needing to clip the ticket as much. And that really spoke to me, because when I extrapolated it out, I could see that difference across my life if I was to retire at 65. So it became a no-brainer just based on the money. But what really sold me and what really spoke to my values and the values of others that I shared this kaupapa with is the why. And there's a reason that Simplicity is held as a not-for-profit. There's a reason we're having conversations like this, not just of what Simplicity does, but perhaps what good looks like across the KiwiSaver market. So there was a lot of reasons that made me go, yeah, this is for me.
And do you think those reasons still stand now, or have they evolved a little bit in the 6 years that you've been a Simplicity member? Because I think I think what I'm speaking to here is the business has probably changed a little bit. We started out as a primarily low-cost, passive, index fund focused KiwiSaver provider. And I think as we've gone over those years, and this is something that we've talked about offline as well, as we've added things on around what we invest in outside of just those index funds, which is not everyone's cup of tea. And it is a small part of what we do. It's, say, probably 10% or less at the moment, but it's important to Sam and it's important to us as a business. So would you say those, I guess, reasons for joining or being a member have evolved at all alongside that?
Evolved is one way to put it. I would say they have deepened.
Okay.
If we look at what Simplicity does now compared to what it did 2 years into the journey, around 2018, Simplicity has deepened its operations and what it does based on those core purposes. I don't think the why has changed, and neither has my why as to why I still really support Simplicity. I was really fond of the mortgage option when that rolled out. I thought, I want to buy a home soon. This could be for me. Unfortunately, I couldn't scrape a 20% deposit together
Yet.
to get over the line. And then there's some drawbacks aside from the returns when it comes to broad-based index funds. So much of KiwiSaver funds in New Zealand go abroad. Much of it is invested in the US stock markets. That makes sense when the returns are so consistently strong there. But what Simplicity does now is have more options and more hooks into the New Zealand economy. I think that ties to Simplicity's purpose. That 10% you were talking about, which is a bit more active, there is venture capital in there supporting New Zealand's startup ecosystem, those small companies which turn into your Xeros and your Allbirds, and then also private equity, kind of mid-sized, more mature companies, investing in those who then go on to be able to grow, support New Zealand households through jobs and supply into New Zealand supermarkets, for example, with some of the investments that you already have. All of that, I think, aligns with the why of Simplicity and my why. If the returns are just as strong, but the benefits to the country are even higher, then we're doing a good thing here. The same goes for building houses. One might argue that the rental yield on a house isn't as high as, say, 10% in the New York Stock Exchange. But when you combine the cost of building those houses, assuming you can do it cheap, and then the value uplift across time plus the rental yields, I think it's a really sensible option for Simplicity to provide not only to its members, but then also the flow-on benefits for the country.
Love that. Let's go back to you, though. Let's kind of talk about you and your investing generally, your relationship with money. I know you've touched on it. So growing up in Tairāwhiti, Gisborne, was it something that you and your family talked about much, or was it a taboo subject? Like, how did your family deal with money?
We're a really open family. A high trust environment is what it was, but it can also become a high stress environment, and there were certainly periods of that as I was growing up. A huge stress was the mortgage. It was big and consistent, sometimes more consistent than income flows. And when that happens, although there might always be food in the pantry, you know that you're constrained, right? So I grew up, I guess, socialized by my environment, thinking we can't spend because we're poor. So in many ways, we were well off and still now are. That's a really positive thing. But also just growing up around people who didn't have a lot, going to school, not wearing my shoes because I wanted to play football all day, but then people were coming to school without shoes for different reasons. Growing up in Tairāwhiti, all of these concepts landed on me when I moved to Auckland and realized the world isn't like this. Going back to how we dealt with money, we were a balance between conservative and quite flippant. I guess it's similar to how a lot of people do it on a household level. On payday, you feel rich. The day before payday, you feel broke. So I grew up with this boom and bust mindset. And as I've gone on my own journey, it's been about trying to unlearn some of those things and hold on to some of the money principles that are going to benefit me throughout my life.
And do you think that's kind of shaped how you think about money now? Tell us about your kind of investing journey a little bit.
I think it was Sharesies. When that started up, I thought, I have $50. I can go take a punt on Tesla and see how it goes. And then I put $50 more in and I took more punts. And, I'm relatively informed, generally make good decisions, consider myself quite strategic and long-term minded, but I still couldn't beat the market.
How old were you when you first bought your Tesla shares via Sharesies?
I must have been 20, early 20s. I didn't succeed. At some point, I liquidated my Sharesies accounts. I decided, let the professionals do it. The people who have to earn a living doing this are always going to have more time, effort, and knowledge than myself picking this up as a hobby or a side thing. So I put it into the index funds options through Simplicity's investment scheme alongside my KiwiSaver, and just let those grow over time. Contributed as much as I could on a weekly basis to both of these accounts. So that was through having a 10% contribution to KiwiSaver as soon as I started working. That becomes 13% with the employer contribution. I thought that's great, but I want to get it higher. So I calculated what 10% of my gross income was and took that out of every paycheck as well and put that in. So going hard early set me up well to, by the end of last year, be in a pretty strong position and, somewhere slightly ahead of most people with just a few years work experience. I'm about 4 years into my career now. At the end of last year, I was able to put all of that together and go and buy a house in Auckland, a new build, 2-bed, not much maintenance, all things that kind of allow me to continue to live my life as is. And then the mortgage, which is huge, and the mortgage payments aren't now all that different to how much I was trying to save.
I think that's really common. I was talking about this with someone that's looking to buy a house, and you save everything you've got to go towards that first home deposit, right? And you don't realise that once you actually buy a house, that might actually reduce a bit because you don't have to save everything you've got. It's a set payment, the mortgage usually, with caveats around whether you have a revolving credit or offset or anything like that. But it's harder to save for the deposit than it is to actually just do your mortgage payments in many cases, right? I found that really strange when it came to it for me a few years ago when we bought our house.
Yeah, it is strange. I think part of it is because it's optional whether you save and invest, and that choice creates a bit of friction and strain. Do I want to put that $250 away this week, or do I make it $200 and get Uber Eats tonight?
Yes.
Whereas,
want monster.
Yeah, that's right. But when it comes to mortgage payments, it's consistent. This is what the number is going to be, and you have to work around that.
Exactly. So, okay, you are probably one of the more motivated and sorted investors that we'll probably ever talk to. So, massive kudos for that.
Appreciate that. Early days.
Yeah, no, but I mean, how old are you now?
26.
26, and already having bought a house, end of last year, and kind of well on your journey in terms of having the automated investments, contributing more than what most people contribute to KiwiSaver. How about the future? So you've got your house, you've got investments going on. In terms of for you and your future, do you kind of have any long-term goals or around housing or retirement or anything like that you're saving towards?
Great question. I haven't got specific yet about what I see my retirement as. I don't know when it'll be. I don't know how long I'll live. I don't know if the world will be burning by then. Who knows? But
Big thoughts.
Big thoughts. And when you're trying to go from there to how much should I be borrowing away every week, there's a big disconnect. What I've tried to do, starting from where I am now and looking out, I'm just trying to pay down that mortgage as fast as possible and then contribute to investments as consistently as possible on top of that. That doesn't leave a whole bunch of wiggle room, but that's kind of what we signed up for here.
That's your current outlook.
That's my current state. And I don't know how long that'll go on. I'm also putting away a little bit towards, holiday savings. Everybody needs to get away sometime. Yeah. Exactly. I don't know whether the rest of my life and career is going to be based in New Zealand. I can imagine doing an OE of sorts like many of my friends have done. They had that direction in their life, wanting to do it in their early 20s. I thought it was the time to knuckle down, get a foothold on the property ladder, and then see if that provides me more options. At the moment, it's limiting my options, but that won't always be the case across my life. Looking long term, I just want financial security for me and my family. I've said that before, but it really is as general as that. I can't put a simple dollar figure on what that comfort and success criteria looks like, I suppose. But I don't have any specifics apart from just be consistent, do the things that make the present moment worth it, enjoy your time, and put a little away for the future to enjoy that future.
Financial security is a huge thing, right? But YOLO also, because we don't know, as you said, when we're going to die.
Also YOLO.
Yeah. Let's just talk about your thoughts around KiwiSaver and investing in the bigger picture. So I know that this is something you're quite passionate about and you've touched on a little bit. We've looked at the individual benefits in terms of, financial security, saving for a house in your future and not having to worry. How about the kind of bigger picture with KiwiSaver?
KiwiSaver funds are similar to huge foreign investors who could come in and invest in this country. If there was a billionaire worth 90 million who was saying, hey, I want to come and live in New Zealand and I want to invest here, we would be rolling out the red carpet for them.
Yeah, we would.
Probably change legislation to enable
that capital. Yeah.
That's right. But since it's here already, it's kind of incognito. We don't think about the value to the country that deploying these KiwiSaver funds could do. So housing shortages, infrastructure deficits, we're talking about the government not being able to fund it all from the taxpayer, and they're looking at private-public partnerships to be able to, say, build toll roads or expand the housing supply. I think there is a ready and able investor pool here, which is already invested in New Zealand. So I would like to see more done there. I think Simplicity is doing some of the right things. And I think having that money go towards, say, infrastructure or housing will just help us stop cutting corners the way that we do. If we just go one step further with how we build the infrastructure in this country and the quality of houses in this country, then we can get back to what New Zealand was when we felt on top of the world. And we don't have to keep looking overseas to say, oh, this is what good looks like, because we'll know what good looks like. We're doing it right here. Good things will come. There are still so many great things about this country which have more of a stickiness than we give it credit for.
We're starting to make it better. Awesome. Well, I think we'll wrap it up there. So thank you so much, Te Wai, for helping us kick off our investor stories. Really cool to kind of hear how your investor journey has gone and also obviously what a super fan that you are. It's such an important way for us to grow as a non-profit and kind of trying to do good. So we appreciate you so much.
I appreciate that.
Awesome. Thanks again for coming in, and we'll catch our listeners next time. Cheers.
This podcast is an unscripted interview with a member who has volunteered their time and contains the interviewee's personal opinions and circumstances. They are not Simplicity's recommendations or statements and are provided for general information only. This content does not relate to your particular financial situation or goals and is not financial advice or recommendations. Simplicity New Zealand Limited is the issuer of the Simplicity KiwiSaver scheme and investment funds. For product disclosure statements and information on our responsible investment policy and approach, please visit Simplicity's website, simplicity.kiwi.